Hello, everyone. Welcome to Meticulous Talks on July 22nd. I am Chris Cords.
And I'm Hifrock.
Pleasure to talk to you once again, Ithrock.
Yeah, it's been a little while.
Been about a month
Yeah.
since we took off that last one. But late July and August is not the time for breaks because the Continentals is coming.
Yeah.
Everfree is in 3 weeks, I think.
Yeah, about that. I'm very excited.
As am I. As is everyone. There's going to be, lots of opportunity for content and for thinking, and both now and afterwards, once the meta settles down again for the next year, as set by Continentals. Have you figured out what you're going to play yet?
So I will probably play Royal Tutor because I kind of wanted to build my deck, but I'm kind of the person that procrastinates on things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And like, if I had all of my cards, I would build my own deck like one day before the event. As you do, I guess. But since I don't have my own cards, I have to like ask for the deck in advance because somebody will be lending me a deck. So I'm kind of in a tough spot for that.
Yeah, that's how it happens. You're right. I tend to build my decks as the last thing before going to a convention as well. Usually on the last night after I've already packed up everything else.
Yes.
In my case, I'm a bit torn. I was thinking Celestia as well. I've found a couple other interesting decks lately that might draw me as well. So I'm not quite sure yet.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But the stream is not about what we are going to be playing. Stream is going to be about the sort of guild in general, because our good friends over at Commentaries Magic last week were able to bring up 8 sort of contender decks, as they called it, and they did a good kind of survey of the field and the matchup between them. Matchups, I should say. And I guess the summary, the short form of it, was that it looked very varied, and while some decks had advantages in some places, they all had weaknesses elsewhere.
Yes.
Which is good. But I felt that there was a little bit more that could have been said about all of that, and thus it would be worthwhile for us to kind of chime in to our own degree on the all of that. So we're not going to go through each of the deck lists. Are we gonna?
Oh no.
Oh, did you want to?
No, I'm kidding.
I thought we would save some time there.
We're not doing Slogfest.
Yeah. So let me just bring this up here. So this is the same crosstable that Sim used. I have filled in the other half because, with all due respect, I think this is easier to look at. Being able to just scan across a whole row to see all of a single deck's matchups. However, I have here the numbers of votes that Sim gave to each matchup are the number. That's we might rely on that a little bit. We'll see. But I thought that given the fact that we've already got that information, I'd make it a little bit harder on ourselves by requiring a determination of how favored the matchup is. It is one thing to say a deck has the advantage per se, but that could mean a 5% edge, a 10% edge, 25% edge, whatever. and that might not be particularly useful information without that context, frankly.
Yes.
Uh,
But I
so
think that was kind of the idea behind SimStream. It's like, yeah, can't really say for sure, right? It's hard to tell sometimes how favored something is against something else.
yeah, we have sometimes we have a little bit of data perhaps to look back on. Not as much. I looked at it before the stream today, and I was actually a little bit disheartened by how little historical data we actually have on some of these decks.
I don't think you should be disheartened. I think you should be happy because that means it's all new and diverse.
Well, that's good. Yes, it just means I don't have any hard data to back up my assessments.
Yes. You'll get hard data in 3 weeks.
Well, that's all well and good. It's easy to say which decks are favored after the tournament. That's the it's a lot harder to say it before. So we won't be getting through all of these. Oh, that's right. Weekly gameplay videos. Thank you, Bugle. Oof. I have been unmasked as someone who doesn't watch the weekly gameplay videos. That's a shame.
Yeah.
Yeah, we probably aren't going to go through all of these. 8 by 8. That's a very significant amount.
So yes, GP points out that probably majority of this will be slightly favored and slightly unfavored.
I don't know. I mean, majority probably. Yes.
Yeah.
There's
I don't think a single deck will be strongly favored. That's like a huge.
probably not. Probably not. I think there are some true toss-ups in here, though, for sure.
Yeah.
Like actually, those are the parts that I'm most interested in. Is these like 2/2s? Whether some of them are going to be true toss-ups or if there is actually a slight edge either way. And so like another thing that I find interesting is, and this is actually where I kind of wanted to start, is our 2 yellow aggro lists, Thorax and Nurturing Nature. Because I find it kind of interesting that, for example, Sim split on the head-to-head matchup, but we're all very clear that Thorax had the edge versus Royal Tutor while Nurturing Nature didn't. They are both yellow aggro lists. They are both trying to go fast. They're both trying to score points in slightly different manners. Thorax is better on face-offs. Nurturing Nature is not. But I would have thought that the primary determinant versus the combo list would be just how fast you go. Maybe I'm not right about that.
So could it be because Royal Tutor doesn't have as much disruption against Thorax compared to Nurturing Nature?
That is a possibility. I should actually have the deck lists open on a side tab here.
Like a lot of Thorax stuff is small friends, and the main is very big. And there's not much you can do about the main but to move it.
Mm-hmm.
And like removing one of the Thorax's small stuff is barely anything, right? So
Uh, it both is and isn't. Like
depends on
this,
the friend, I guess.
yeah. This new Thorax list has some important pieces.
Yes, of course. Like
That
Birds of a Feather, you definitely would love to remove that.
yeah.
But once I think Thorax has a board set up, it's really hard to disrupt that. And I don't think Royal Tutor has a lot of tools for that.
Single school shutdown and just winning the game, I guess, are
Yeah.
your two answers.
Yes, and GP points out that It's more that Thorax's point scoring boosted heavily by problem bonuses, which is true, and the board goes wider, which is my point. I think that's the big contributor to the fact.
Okay. So if that's the case, then it sounds like he should have a strong edge against the other aggro deck. If he's just
Why?
because he's going faster, as you said. Aggro versus aggro is mostly about how fast you go, isn't it?
Well, it's not necessarily faster. Like higher bonuses is useful against control decks because like one face-offs gives you more output, and it's harder to do many face-offs, right?
Grandpa's, in
And
your last comment, you legitimately said, which means he not only goes faster.
anyway, so
Sorry, go ahead, Hithrock.
and wider board when you consider head-to-head matchup doesn't really matter that much, right? Uh, and Fluttershy, if anything, gets a little smaller, less wide board because of Shoeshine, right?
Mm-hmm.
She likes to eat her own stuff, which is really good for Royal Tutor because it's something you can remove.
Mm-hmm.
But in head-to-head, it doesn't matter as much, right?
I suppose so.
But it is interesting.
Right, right. So I suppose let's start working on this then. So I believe that's the right color, right? Yeah, 4 from the right. Okay.
I agree with the toss-up on that one, yes.
Sure. Right.
And I agree that Thorax is slightly flavored to Royal Tutor.
Okay.
And Nurture Nature, I don't know. I would leave it at a toss-up, maybe?
Slightly favored is light green 2, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't think Nurturing Nature is unfavored.
Sorry, we're talking about Royal Tutor?
Yes, versus Royal Tutor.
It all comes down to look at the decks again here quickly. Oh, no, this one. Wax. Royal Tutor. I have it open twice because probably, yeah. I mean, that's the one nature has very little corruption in it. This is pretty much just a race.
So does Thorax.
Even less so in Thoris's case, right?
Yeah. Well, it depends if you consider Friendlow is there to be a disruption, which I think it's fair to say this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, Thorax also doesn't have sticks. Sticks are a disruption, so.
That is true. Actually, that's pretty. That's fairly significant for the early game.
Yeah.
For those early guidance counselors and such. I don't know. It kind of starts to sound like Nurture Nature. Not unfavored. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's unfavored. I think it's a toss up.
Okay. Okay. Another. I guess the Grogar list was an interesting one that I wanted to look at. Because it didn't have a whole lot of confidence, shall we say. There are no 4. There's 1 4 in here, and a number of other offs. And most of these 1 votes are Aura, I think. This one was Cheese, I think. Or maybe that was Grandpa's. Oh yeah, that was Grandpa's, this one.
Yeah.
So, and Farm is often a fairly easy deck to think about because it has such a simple game plan, generally.
The Grogar versus Silverstream, right?
Well, I'm sure that's where we are right now. In the past, historically, control is strong against farm. That's a very broad brush statement, but
Depends on what kind of control.
it depends on what kind of control. But pink is generally a good color because farm doesn't have a whole lot of friends, but it does have those friends it does have are extremely impactful. It's good to get rid of them, and also problem replacement's really good against farm.
Yes.
It's true. Purple control was the strongest against farm because of the movement. Yeah, but I've seen pink do well enough. This particular farm deck as well. Again, look at it again here. But I'm pretty sure it's fairly straightforward in terms of what it is trying to do. It is just the flip more win face-offs.
Pretty much, yeah. It's farming tech.
Yeah.
But how many tools does Silverstream have against that?
Right.
Yes. Like, yeah, pink has problem replacements, which I don't think this deck has that.
Actually
Oh, no,
doesn't.
it has
That's right.
smile,
Well,
smile, smile is
yeah,
like a
that's single copy. Yeah, I was expecting to see Discord, but I guess.
So, in a way, Squeezer is also probably a sideboard against farm.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe other Tyrek stuff as well. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And your Tyrek combo doesn't work against farm. Like they just play an epic, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing really stopping that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's also bluefing.
Right.
Bluefy is a good point, yes.
Hmm. Not sure what to say. And you're right that. Sorry, go ahead if you had something.
So here's my little take, right?
Mm-hmm.
The farm deck doesn't really have a lot of friends. The
Yeah.
pink deck has a lot of friend disruption. That's problem number one.
Yeah.
That's also what killed BRB back in the day, right? That's why farm went dominant, even though BRB was a really good deck. When core was just started to be a thing.
That's a good point.
Because farm just didn't run any friends. That's first thing. Second thing is that spoony taxes don't work on troublemakers, as
Yeah.
far as I remember. So that card doesn't really do much against farm as well. Well, I guess it stops all of the extra flip stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's not as relevant as it would be against other decks. Is my point, I guess here.
In general, yes. And this deck's flip average is not awful. Got a big pile of events and troublemakers. So if the farm deck's not flipping extra cards, it's actually not entirely. You might actually win some face-offs on merit.
But farm will, like, they will pay the tax, I think.
Farm usually doesn't care about its as much.
If they have, like, if the farm has to win the troublemaker face-off, they're definitely gonna pay the tax. Anyway, like, I just don't see this deck locking out farm. I don't think it's happening.
Okay, so let me see. You had you had a point in favor of Silverstream and a point in favor of Farm.
What was my point in favor of Silverstream?
That the wait. Sorry,
Spoony?
you're right. You're right.
No,
Those were
Spoony was
both.
against.
Those were both. Those were both points in favor of Farm. You're right.
Yes. Like, I think Spoony is relevant at she makes flips more expensive, like extra flip events.
Hmm.
But again, not as useful as she would be against other decks. So
You
I'm here for
have,
slightly favored. I don't think it's heavily favored.
I don't know. I mean, that sounds almost like I'd be willing to call it favored rather than.
Oh.
I mean, it's got if and I was kind of explaining this to you before the stream. Like if there are if there are 2 points that kind of go in favor of one deck over the other, and no like counter mitigating factors, you can say, but this is why the farm deck might have an advantage in the situation. Or sorry, why Silver
The other
Screen
way around.
might have an advantage in this situation. Why is it so confusing? It shouldn't be
Well,
confusing.
Silverstream has Squizard and Bluffy, so
Hmm.
Silverstream has a little bit of tools.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah, and it's just like favored the 75 to 95. I think that's too much.
75 is not that much.
That's 3 games out of 4.
That's also one game out of four.
Yes, that's a lot.
Like,
I'm remaining in slightly favored.
fair enough. You know that I hate being wishy-washy.
But I do think Farm is favored for Silverstream. So I want to know. It was GP's vote for Gorgord, right?
Yes,
Oh, and everybody else voted for Silverstream.
that's right.
So I agree with GP then. Okay.
I suppose so. Yes.
So I do wonder why. I don't remember if they discussed this particular matchup on stream.
They did. That's right. Because this was like the only thing where Grandpa's disagreed with like everybody else on.
Mm-hmm.
He was a fairly with the group voter. Um, Also, I guess interesting. I guess this is a tiny little tangential correlation. I noticed Ivory was actually the most with the group voter. He only disagreed with well, he and Grandpa's only disagreed on 2 matchups. An interesting little tidbit I saw there.
To me, it seemed like Cheese and Arrow were aligned on a lot of things, and GP and Ivory were aligned on a lot of things. That's how I interpreted the things.
Um, yeah, let me just look at this again. But well, Grandpa's and Ivory for sure. Are harder to measure because Ara was
Yeah.
off on his own so often. They were both kind of mavericks in some cases.
Maybe I should play Farm.
Farm it's a historically great deck. Remember, people underestimate Farm. That's when Farm does well.
Oh, we have our Farm resident in the chat. Pancake.
True. See if there's any other. So the control versus control matchup was another toss up across the line. That was kind of interesting to me. These two are broadly similar decks. That was a joke that was made during the sim stream. Relying on pretty similar ideas. With the orange in Chrysalis being one of the bigger where I'm looking for diversions from the main line. But other than that, largely the same. So let me look to see if there's any natural edges between them.
You mean Cadence versus Chrysalis?
No, Silverstream versus Chrysalis.
Oh, that's not what you have selected
Oh, shoot,
on stream. I
you're
was
right.
like, those decks are different. What are you talking about?
sorry, you're right. Versus Chrysalis. Now that's interesting. That's a matchup I would expect to be a little bit more good.
Silverstream versus Chrysalis seems to be 1 versus 3.
You're right. Cadence versus. Real shame I haven't seen this Cadence deck get played much lately. Still real good though. Yeah, I know, Grandpa. Yeah. If I were to be honest, I hate to admit it, but I feel like I am kind of out of my depth doing this. But it's been too long since I watched this stuff.
It is a big time investment.
Sorry?
It is a time investment.
Yeah. Uh anything you had to say, Ifrock?
For Chrysalis versus Silverstream?
Chrysalis versus Silverstream. Or wait, no, for the Chrysalis, either one.
No, tell me which one.
I was looking at Chrysalis and Cadence.
Chrysalis and Cadence. Okay.
Right. Because that is aggro versus control, right?
Yes.
It's I am. It would seem probably like one of them should have an edge. Sorry, is Cadence considered aggro or is it mid range? That was the one mid range deck on this list, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
No.
Oh,
GP is saying it's aggro 100%.
okay. Well, what was the mid? Oh, right. The Alicorns deck it was considered the mid range deck because I remember there was all of them were there somewhere. All of the archetypes.
Yeah. It kind of looks like Hot Wings. Kinda. A little bit. Maybe it's because it's blue pink. But that's like a blue pink deck that has disruption.
Yeah. Blue pink decks. No, they don't. I was gonna say blue pink decks all look the same, but no, they don't. There are different ones. I
Does
sorry, go
does
on.
Cadence have an easy time flipping Chrysalis back?
Uh,
She has like a lot of cheap stuff.
it depends. It depends on a lot of things. I mean, yes, she does have a lot of cheap stuff. But once Chrysalis gets fully out, yeah, you wait long enough, get your AT back. You'll be able to do it.
But like you need 3 to 5 AT to do this, right?
Yeah.
Which is how much you get per turn.
And you have the sorry, I need to read cadences of text again. Yeah, that's how that works. So yeah, you could got a good supply of events. Have the card draw from your main. Like yeah, you even have the potential play of you lead off with an event that you allow to get canceled, and then play 2 friends, get your card draw back, and then yeah,
Or you can cancel a friend, like if you have an extra pipsqueak or something,
yeah.
or fleet, like.
I just think playing 2 friends in that sequence is probably pretty important to get that card draw in that case.
Yes.
So yeah, that seems like an edge for Cadence.
GP is saying that having a lot of disruption kind of ruins Chrissy, but Cadence has struggles to deal with taxes. Although, like with Chrissy taxes. I guess if Chrissy has like spoons out, it's a real problem. But the main, I don't think. Does the main have high impact? Because it feels to me like Cadence deck should fairly easily flip her back.
well, it is admittedly not as clear as that. Because let me try and formulate this properly. So, Chrysalis obviously isn't going to flip right away. It's going to be like late middle or
Sure.
early middle game, right?
Sure.
So Cadence, suppose she starts out well, is going to have played some of her cheap stuff already, right? She's going to open up with cheap stuff. And so I think it's not outside the realm of possibility that by the time Chrysalis flips over, Cadence's hand might be a little bit heavier than it would have been in general, right?
Maybe.
Like you'll have played your early game friends. Your hand's going to have some events in it. It's going to have some somewhat more expensive stuff, perhaps. Like
Yeah. And I guess you cannot afford to hold on to your cheap stuff because you're an aggro deck. You need to go fast versus control.
mhm, mhm. Oh, thank you. I'm happy for that vote of confidence, Grandpa's. Thank you. So, right. That is the edge that Cadence has. No,
It's okay. We're gonna be confused in
thought
text.
we fixed. I fixed the format of this table. I thought we wouldn't be end up getting confused over who was arguing in favor of which deck.
I mean, honestly, the table that Sim posted was very confusing. I had to take like a couple of looks to really interpret it. Like I think the fact that you've done like mirrored thing is much better.
I personally agree. Yeah. Anyway, so yes, that was the vote in favor of. I see. Okay. Yeah. That was the vote in favor of Chrysalis. Yes. Yes. Now, reasons why Cadence should have an edge would go simply that once, if Chrysalis isn't able to get set up, you can just outrace her, right?
Cadence or Chrysalis?
If the control deck
Okay,
isn't
Chrysalis, not
able
Cadence
to get
then.
set up, then the aggro deck can
Yes,
outrace it.
yes. I was like, Chrysalis cannot outrace.
Just
What the fuck?
dispatch with all the pronouns and just talk in terms of archetypes.
Hey, it's a good problem to have. Too many decks to keep track of.
It's true. It's true. So proper nouns. Yes, you're right. So sure, that puts us down on both of those. As I said, if there's reason to like both of them, then call it a toss-up, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So actually, a quick question. I don't remember if it was covered on stream, because I forget things that happened a few days ago. uh, why did Sim decide to like definitely vote whether a deck is like favored or not favored? Because there's no option right here, like for the Sim votes, to basically vote a toss up, right? There's no way.
That's right. Yeah.
You either have to say that one deck is favored or another one.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure. I don't. I watched it just like yesterday. I'm pretty sure they didn't cover that.
Oh. I
Um,
watched it on like Tuesday, and I don't remember half of the things. I, it's a lot of things are going on
yeah.
for me.
Yeah. No. That's totally fine. Yeah. I personally think that's a fairly worthwhile. Okay. Here we go. Ba-ba-da-ba-da. Zooming in the scale of favored versus unfavored. Right. Right.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
but like, what if a deck is a true toss up? How would you vote? Would you have to take a stance?
Well, there are
Or I
very
guess,
few true toss-ups.
yeah, I guess those don't exist.
Yeah.
You leave it blank. Interesting.
Interesting. Yeah. Like I guess my philosophy in moving into these kind of somewhat starker ideas was that a 5% edge isn't really an edge if it's a one game sample. Like it almost doesn't matter to have a 5% edge if you're playing a single game.
Yes, you need at least 20 games, right, for that to matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I suppose the other thing that hasn't been covered and is important for Continentals is that the Swiss environment and the knockout environment are totally different.
Yes.
And a deck that might have an edge in the Swiss environment might not necessarily have an edge in the knockout rounds. Um,
Yep.
yeah. Well, I mean, a 60% plus win rate in total. Yes.
Yes.
In single matchups though,
Yeah, I agree with you, Cursor.
that's more.
60% in total is crazy, but in a single matchup, it can easily happen, I feel like.
So anyway, let us look a little bit at some more. What is another? This 2 is corresponding with this 2. Chrysalis and Skystar. Alicorns versus Control. That's right. Was this the whole there was a big debate. I think this is one of the ones that they argued about on stream. Where are we here? Chrysalis.
So one thing I was wondering about actually the Alicorn list is
Mm-hmm.
usually in the past, a list like this would run Student 6, right? But this one runs Skystar.
That's right.
Is that like for the easiest start or
That change. Ooh, geez. Most of the reanimator lists changed over from. Let me see. What was the last time someone ran Student 6? Well, okay, Roman ran it in the last tournament. The last time someone ran a Student 6 Reanimator, it was actually quite a while ago. Here we go. Yeah, it was actually right before Everfree last year. And then from that point on, the Tricorn deck has been Skystar dominated, basically. So,
Okay, I see. GB explained that it's
uh,
for royal family and draw straws, and draw straws is a really good point. It's a
that
5 rack pink card.
makes sense, actually. Yeah, that actually makes the most sense. Since pink has become, if pink is shifted to becoming the primary color that you want,
Mm-hmm.
then yeah, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
and it
Um,
is so much easier to flip than Student 6.
yep. Still tied. The easiest main to flip in the game. So if I were to bring it back, I need to actually look. I've forgotten what Don't Tell even does for draw straws.
You banish a thing, then you play.
Right. Randomly, yes. Yeah. This is pretty much the only deck that works in, and it's pretty good in that sense.
Yeah. But we were looking. It was kind of a side point here, right, about the main.
Mhm.
We were looking at the matchup.
Well,
At
kind
some
of.
point.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, Star and yes. This was another one actually. Yeah. That. Or wait, no. I'm looking in the wrong place again. Star and Crystal. Mm-hmm. Sorry. Give me a second.
Okay. So, are you back?
Yep.
Okay. So for Chrysalis as a reanimator, I'm not sure what tools does Chrysalis have against reanimator.
She has got.
No, actually, just as I say that, GP writes a thing.
Font of all knowledge, GP, in the chat here for us. Actually,
How?
yeah. The guaranteed fit of peak is pretty big.
How does it help against reanimator?
Well, it's immediate speed, right?
Yes. Okay.
To get rid of something that's just hit the discard pile.
Okay. But like, if you look at reanimator, right? Draw straws does not put things into play from discard pile.
Right, and neither does
Neither does royal family.
Royal Family. It's just ticket. It's called +1 actually. Um, And that card, the deck still have Catchy Song?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's some pieces.
Um, I guess.
Being able to have an answer against half the pieces of reanimation. Well, all the reanimation per se, not half of the cheat stuff into play effects.
Okay, but once reanimation stuff is down, what do you do?
What do you do? That is
Like if I
principal
have two
problem.
tricorns in play, I guess there's Crystal Mind Cage.
Small thing. Yep. Uh,
It's gonna
admittedly,
work as a good point, yes.
yeah, it's gonna work. Will work as well. Well,
It's going to work.
yeah. I mean, Twilight is obviously the singular exception.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, stealing Twi is a really good point
Mhm.
because usually Twi is what makes removing everything else so annoying, including herself, and stealing her.
Yeah.
And I guess this reanimator doesn't really have a lot of resource removal. It's just disappearances.
Uh, Appearances. Is that it?
I think so.
Yeah. Yeah. It's actually, now that I think about it, there's among these 8, there's not a whole lot of resource removal except for the yellow decks. I remember that being a well, and the purple decks. But okay, it feels like I'm walking back. I know there are a few decks in here that are running a lot like less than average resource removal. By which I mean less than 3 cards, right?
Oh yeah, Captain Jack. That's a resource removal. That's right.
Of
As
a sort,
pointed out,
yes.
as pointed out by Bugle. But I guess if you're playing Jack, they're gonna keep like if they stole Twi with a mind cage, they're gonna keep that. Like I don't think there's really like if you're looking at other resources, if you have the Twi, I think that's the one you're gonna keep
Oh yeah, and you
most of the time.
there aren't many situations where you've got a better course of action than preventing your opponent from getting Twilight back into play.
Oh yeah, and GP says that you can just retire Twi to Captain Jack and fit the
Hmm.
pick here
Hmm.
later.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's also a play.
also works. Yeah.
So I personally, for this matchup, I personally think that I don't know. I don't think it's a toss up. I don't think it's a toss up.
Right.
I think Reanimator is slightly favored, despite everything else here. But that's my I'm with Ara here. So like Ara during the stream he said like a lot of his votes are like gut feelings.
Hmm.
That's in this particular case, that's what I'm operating on as well.
Sometimes it works. And sorry, you said Skystar had the slight favor, right?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Dragon's is so historically strong. You're right. Actually, wait a second. Dragon's is one of the decks we actually have a fair amount of historical data about. Let me look again quick. This is speed 3. Yeah, here we go. Because I know, well, it's going to be all the Chaos Farm lists. Chaos Farm lists. Okay. In Invitational last year, did lose once. That actually. Oh, that was to the Celestia combo. Interesting.
The Alicorn list?
Yeah.
It lost? Mm.
Yeah, That was it. Was the first Grand Finals match.
Mm.
Cheese is playing against Grandpa's.
Well, Celestia combo is a different thing
Yeah,
compared to
yeah.
deck.
I was just making a note, and then here it is again. We're going back to Everfree of last year. Pages was playing it. A loss to Cadence. Kind of interesting. And right, yeah, a couple losses to Farm, I think. Yeah. None of which are the matchup we're talking about. Ugh. Oh, and then sorry, yeah, Bugle was also playing Tricorns that tournament. And he played Farm and itself and Chaos Control. Ah. It has a number of losses on record, none of which are in this matchup that we're talking about here. Which I guess,
Yeah.
of course, it's not because Chrysalis is a new deck. But
Yeah, sort of. Yeah.
anyway,
So yeah, I do think Alicorns are slightly favored, and if I'm wrong, that's fine.
yeah, that's the beauty of guessing before the tournament. Being fine with being wrong sometimes. I probably need to say something about this matchup, don't I?
I think we discussed it at length.
Yeah, but I
There were
haven't
a
given
lot of...
I haven't
Okay.
given a verdict.
Oh, okay. I
He,
mean,
I'm
honestly, like all of the points that we had in the chat about like Feet of Pig and Captain Jack and everything else are like
mhm,
really good points.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, yeah, and so like it wouldn't be. We did promise people disagreements, so I guess I'm gonna go on the other side, and
Okay.
we'll see what happens.
Yeah, yeah.
And what will happen is that nobody's gonna run these decks.
Okay. So, no. What we do is we run these decks. I will run Alicorns, and you will run
Chrysalis.
Chrissy. Yes,
Wow.
and we get a matchup, and that
I
will decide who wins.
I guess so. Yeah, that's fine. I guess I like control.
I don't like Alicorns, so.
So sorry. Are you joking, or do you actually want to do
Yeah,
this?
I'm messing.
Okay.
It's just okay. If we were guaranteed to match against each other, I would
Right.
honestly do it. But since we're not guaranteed, it's kind of it'll be unfortunate, do the swing and then we never play against each other.
Um.
So, should we look at like one last matchup?
Sure. Is there
So,
one that you want to?
so I see another toss-up, 2-2, which is Grokord and Royal Tutor, Farm versus
Yes.
Samba.
Farm versus
And I
combo.
was wondering, it might be a small discussion, but I was wondering if it's just the speed. Like, I guess they just don't. Those two decks, I guess, don't really interact with each other, right? They just go, right?
Pretty much. I mean, so Farm has Garble now, which
Yes.
is its combo hate.
Yes.
But that's obviously not a early play.
Spoilers, this is the next week's live gameplay.
Oh, is it?
I'll have to watch that one then.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I've been needled enough about not finding time in my schedules to watch them, so probably a good idea. And frankly, good idea for anybody else who's watching out there.
Mm-hmm.
Once a week, premiere gameplay from some of the best pilots.
But yeah, do you think it's just speed, or do you think there's something else?
Um, combo
Other
deck.
than Garble. Garble is a good point.
Yeah,
But Garble is like a point towards farm, right?
it is.
And yet we have 2-2 vote split here.
Well, it's the point is that Garble is. I mean, it's still a late game play. You got 3 of them in there. It's not like it's good anti-combo tech, but it's not amazing anti-combo tech. Celestia combo is one that is to a greater or lesser degree on the ground more than in the hand. Like there's some amount of it that stays in your hand, but like a good amount of it is on the ground, and farm isn't as good at dealing with stuff on the ground anymore.
Yeah.
Now that we don't have any villains, well, we have Grogar, but that's it. Yeah.
So GP talks about that Royal Tudor has forced movement,
Hmm.
which is a good point. Farm is weak against that.
Yep.
But there's not a whole lot of it.
Let's see. Levitation
And worn out. That's it.
and worn out. Yeah.
Desert Road is a good point, though.
Desert Road is a good point. Trixie's a lot worse against Desert Road, isn't she?
I'm not sure Desert Road. Yeah, I think it must. Yeah.
Well,
It's. I don't remember how that works.
actually, that's a legitimate point. Does she have the counter on it? Yeah, that's a legitimate point.
Says this card enters play with 1 spell counter. I think she does, right? That's the same. Wasn't? Didn't we have this? She does not. Okay.
Okay.
We
So
had the
yes.
same discussion before with Double Diamond, which enters with like spell
Right.
counters.
Right. Okay.
She'll get it next turn. Now that one I don't get. Why would she get it next turn? Yes, Miss Main is the obvious one.
Right. Yeah.
But I do wonder why Trixie would get a counter next turn. She already.
I feel like this is something that's probably going to come up at Continentals. And I mean, Grandpa's is going to be the judge, so I would expect him to know, to have brushed up on this. So I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt for sure.
Yeah. I'm just that's not what I would expect at all. To Trixie get a.
Okay.
Oh,
All
if you
right.
play an event, yes. I mean,
Right.
that part like that's obvious, right? I'm talking about her first
Right.
ability.
Okay. So
The fact that she enters with a spell counter
it sounds like that counter
is gone.
is gone. Yeah.
Yes. So see, that makes sense to me. Okay.
But yeah,
All right.
that's a legitimate point. There is a whole heck of a lot of that's very true. Grogar being Grogar, open like there. You can land a Desert Road really early if you want to. That would be a pretty big deal actually against that combo deck. I mean, not that it's short on resource removal. It definitely has a fair amount of it. Actually.
Well, actually, it only has 3 of them, and that's how many Desert Roads there
And
are.
one of
And
them doesn't work against Desert Road.
exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, that'd be a pretty significant play. Yeah, it's tough. I can see this matchup coming down a lot to factors like opening hands and early draws. Because if Grogar has to like play fair and just do the farm thing, then Royal Tutor combo probably has a reasonable chance of just getting there sooner.
Okay, so this one we can actually make a bet, right? Because I can vote in favor of Royal Tutor, and you can vote the opposite if you feel, of course, if you feel like that, of course. And
Well,
then the
sorry.
weekly matchup will.
I guess yes. So
Unless you don't agree with that, Grogar is favored. Because I think Royal Tutor is favored.
You think Royal Tutor is favored?
Yeah.
I think Is Grogar favored? I don't know if I'd be willing to say that's favored. I think it has a legitimate chance, but I don't know if that I don't know that legitimate chance is greater than 50%.
I mean, 50% is not a legitimate chance. It's just a toss-up.
No. Like if like in my mind, a legitimate chance, quote unquote, is like 40%. That means that some of the time you would expect it to win.
Okay.
Um,
40% is slightly unfavored in our scale.
yeah, which slightly unfavored decks do still win almost half the time.
So Bugle says Royal Tour is favored, but Gogor has I stop you from winning button. Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it.
hmm hmm So I guess what I'm saying is I would not be willing to take that bet unless you gave me odds of greater than 4 and 10.
See the gameplay video release. Gogor will win there, and you'll regret this.
Like I said, if the spread was in favor of me, then maybe I would. Don't gamble, by the way, kid. Um, um, so we've been at this for an hour. I feel like we
I feel like we
offered
should look at all of the
some
decks for
insights.
the next
Hopefully,
8 hours.
yeah. Let's not do that. But there was actually an announcement that I wanted to make, and it'll pertain to next stream actually, because next stream is probably gonna be something similar but different. So there's Continentals coming up, obviously, but there's another tournament coming up after Continentals.
What tournament is that?
Elfin Pen's doing something at RamenCon actually.
I thought you were talking about something else.
I was obviously talking about invitationals, the annual tournament that we put on every year, and I think because the schedule always gets super compressed after Continentals, with getting everything set up, I wanted to lead off with it. The invitational list invitee list has not been finalized yet. There's a lot of points that will be given out at Everfree, but the format for this year is going to be a fairly significant departure from what we did last year and have been doing for the last few years. Last year was a great event, but there was a lot of sameness in the decks that people brought. So I don't know why. Well, yeah. So this year we're instituting the what do you want to call it? Single bans. So if you are a participant in the event, then before the deck building period starts, you're going to have the opportunity to ban a single card from a single format before the deck building starts.
And before everybody bans up to ban all Trixies.
Yeah. The restrictions being that you can't ban a main. We're going to go with that for now. I think that would be a little bit too disruptive. You can effectively delete a full archetype if it's capable of banning mains. And remember, you're only banning a card in a single format. You can select Mist Main, but you can only ban it in either Adventure or Core, unless somebody else bans it in the other format. And so there will be like a week for people to select that, and then there'll be 2 weeks for deck building in the new format, and then it'll go from there. So I was thinking that 2 weeks from now, in our next stream, we could take a look at these decks and under the lens of how vulnerable they are to getting sniped if a single card from them were to get banned. How much worse they would get if you banned their best card.
Okay, let's talk Mist Main.
That's a legitimate point to make on some of these lists. Yeah. But you want to talk about Thorax, right? You might not think that deck is particularly vulnerable, but if you were to remove its point acceleration in Bunyip, or that awesome bomb card that Antoine is from Prize Wheel, how how much worse does the deck get if you were to snipe those cards out? So I think that's a legitimate discussion to have.
Not as much as sniping.
Yeah. So
So
I'll answer Bugle's question. Yes, the bans will go in blind. So what will actually happen is I will ask you for 4 bans in order of sequence, and so that way, if 2 people ban the same card, I'll be able to have secondary choices for people.
oh, but that's no fun. Like, you don't get the mind games where, like, okay, somebody else is gonna ban Mistmane, so I'm gonna ban something else, and then nobody bans Mistmane. Like gaming what other people is gonna ban.
I mean that's a legitimate, interesting point, but I think for
No,
the
I mean, yeah.
yeah. Um,
Well, I mean, Adventure still has Sweetie Belle.
yeah.
Remember her?
Oh, yeah. Geez, do it that way. That's Sweetie Belle you're referring to.
Yes, the cutie mark one.
That's
It used
true.
to be
That's true.
kind of Mistmane, but like much worse,
Much more
and
expensive. Yeah.
only in combo decks.
Pancake, could you elaborate a little bit on what you're referring to in that suggestion?
Yeah, so what I think Cursed is doing here is kind of ranked voting, right? Where you rank the cards from first to fourth that you want to ban.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay. Um,
Ah,
yeah. See, so the issue with doing it that way is that it might take a long time. Like, people sometimes are hard to get hold of. I want to be able to do this in a week. And so, yeah, if we had to go ban in a particular order, then, yeah, it introduces the vulnerability of one guy not being available for a whole week, and everybody's waiting on him to make his choice. Yeah, my best case scenario, yes, would be to get everybody together on one live stream, and then be like, okay, we're gonna do this as a schoolyard draft, basically, and you pick your card, and then you pick your card, etc., around. But I think for purposes of convenience, it's better to just go simultaneously.
yeah, I agree. Yeah,
Um,
this will be something to talk about.
so yeah, that'll be us. Probably for next week. And then obviously, sorry, 2 weeks from now, our next stream,
Yes.
and then the week after that is Continentals. We'll both be there. And then the week after that, we'll be reviewing, of course. And then after that is invitational season. So that's us fixed for the rest of the year.
And then there's HIFCon.
And then there's his con. So very true. Do you want to say anything about that?
It's happening. It's gonna be there in Toronto on September 24th and 25th.
There will be pony cards.
There will be pony cards. And they will probably even be streamed and maybe even commentated. Who knows?
Yeah, work continues in that respect. Okay, so I think that's gonna wrap us up today. I mentioned we weren't going to get to all the matchups. We got to like 4 of them, but they were the most interesting ones.
Yeah, I like this.
So I guess, yeah, I've told you what to expect next time. Thank you to everybody for coming out and chatting. Getting excited for Continentals. I guess we will see you next week. I've been 2 weeks. I have been Cursor Chords.
And I've been Hifrock.
See you then.
Bye.